Hello and welcome to the Asian game from Qatar. Scott McIntyre joined by a special guest. It is Sudesh, who's done some writing for us on the website. Absolutely brilliant stuff, and we're delighted to have you join us on the podcast.
Likewise, I always used to listen to this podcast and literally grew up reading you guys. So it's a dream come true moment for me to be in this podcast as well as to write for the Asian game.
So now we've found the one listener. That's we're very happy. Do you want to just tell the listeners briefly just about your story, because you're not from here, but you're living here?
Yeah, so I came to Qatar in 2020 and I go to university here, but as well as I have a little interest in football here in Qatar, so I just try to follow football and understand wherever I live through football. So I've been covering Qatari football for 2 years and also cover whatever comes my way, and I also write about Nepali football.
Yeah, because you are from Nepal.
Yeah.
We should ask, when is the next time we're going to see Nepal in this tournament?
Not pretty soon. Things are not as good back home, but we would love to see Nepal in a tournament like this, especially in a country like Qatar where there are a lot of Nepalese workers or immigrants in there. So not an easy route for Nepal based on what's going on. Maybe that story will come on the Asian game pretty soon, but yeah, would love to see it, but don't see it happening anytime soon.
One team that is also not going to be here any longer is Saudi Arabia, after they were dumped out in what I think is probably maybe the match of the tournament, an absolutely fantastic match. The first half ended scoreless, but I thought it was just such a brilliant half, like so tight. The space is really difficult to play through, but both teams tried to play football. There was no, aimless switching, no kind of balls to try and get over and in behind. A really good first half that ended scoreless. And then I think before people had hit their seats at the start of the second half, that goal came from Saudi Arabia. Substitute, of course, just come on as well. So quite a way to introduce yourself. And then you thought, okay, maybe the momentum, we should say as well, the Saudi fans, as we know, were brilliant throughout, making a really great backdrop. The Koreans tried to do their bit, but weren't really in it. And then things kind of started to shift a little bit. Korea gradually got back into it. Yeah. And then they absolutely peppered the goal, chance after chance after chance. I think it was the 99th minute when the equaliser did come, then extra time, and then, penalties are very well taken by Korea. So a fantastic game, a fantastic atmosphere, fantastic moment for the tournament. Korea march on to meet Australia. Saudi Arabia go home. We should say as well, Roberto Mancini, I don't know what he was thinking, but he walked out before the penalties were finished. So whether, I touched on this, pre-match, whether you wouldn't think they're going to pull the pin on Mancini, but you just don't know. Saudi have obviously got a lot of history with doing this kind of thing, and whether that was a sign that he knew, maybe he was on the way out, and he just, you were in the press conference, so I'll ask you about that in a minute, some of his reaction from there, but just generally your thoughts on the game as a whole.
Yeah, coming into this match, both South Korea and Saudi Arabia, of course, big teams, potential contenders for the title, as well as what was there in my mind was, were they even properly tested in this tournament? For example, South Korea had their hiccups. Saudi Arabia, of course, except for the first game win, which I don't think a lot of fans were happy with their performance, but they were delighted with the win anyhow. The second game was satisfactory by their standards, but the third game was when it was like they looked very bleak. And coming into this game, it was like a not so convincing South Korean side against a not so convincing Saudi Arabian side as well.
But they turned on a brilliant 45 minutes. So
during the group stages as well, the Saudi defense held pretty well, but they were not tested enough. Today they were properly tested, and I think they had a good job until the 98th minute, the 8th minute of added time. But at the same time, talking about South Korea as well, they had their frailties exposed today, but I think the second half was when they really picked up and then got their momentum, and it came at, I think, the 10th time of knocking the goal. But it was like during the extra time as well, I think they were pretty unlucky not to get a winner. So I think it just shifted that way. But even looking at it from a neutral stance, it was a good game of football. If you look at how the dynamics went in, the first half was very intense. The second half was just Saudi defending against those balls in behinds, over the top, the crosses in the box. They defended to their life, let's say, and the two central defenders were very convincing. And the keeper was really good until the penalty shootout. And it's a good game of football. One giant has walked away from the Asian Cup this time, a potential contender.
And another goes on.
And another goes on. But convincingly, I wouldn't say so.
But there's been so much talk about this Korean side and the hoodoo 64 years without winning this tournament. Do you think potentially we saw the team that could win this tournament tonight?
Potentially anyone can win this tournament, right?
I agree with you on that. Yeah, it's really close.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say personally, it's my opinion. They have not looked as convincing, and neither has any side in this Asian Cup. Like if you'd say before coming into this tournament, Japan's form was very hard to ignore.
Yeah.
Australia in their first game had their own sort of performance, right?
Sure.
The first half against India, they were sent, I think, 10 minutes earlier than the opponent team by their coach. So yeah, it's out there in the open, but South Korea, we know on paper they have that ability. They have those profiles on their team, but have they been walking past their opponents? Not really.
Yeah.
So we might have seen the beginning of a momentum that could potentially win you a tournament, but performance-wise, it was a stellar performance. They would be happy to get this win, but in terms of the overall dynamics, I don't think it's like a assuring kind of performance tonight.
You, as I said, were in the mix zone after you heard from. I'm particularly interested in what Mancini had to say, because the whole dilemma around what happens now. Was there any sense from what you heard that he felt maybe his position was under threat? Or I heard someone suggest that he just walked out because he'd lost count of the penalties or something, which seems rather bizarre.
Yeah, so I'll have to run the events down because this will help put things into context. So it was Jürgen Klinsmann who walked in the press conference before Mancini, which is against the norm because the losing manager comes first.
Sure.
And we had to wait, I guess, an hour and a half before Mancini actually showed up for the press conference after Klinsmann. And the first thing that he did was he straight away apologized for walking out.
Okay.
And he said it was a mistake. And he made that mistake, according to him, because he thought South Korea had already won it.
Right.
So that was what he called it. But there was no suggestions from any of the journalists or even Mancini himself that he was going to discontinue with the national team.
Yeah.
He has a contract that runs until 2027. So he was like, our next target is to look forward to the World Cup qualifiers. And as well as he was talking about the progress that he's made after he has come to Saudi Arabia and how he has been happy with that. But he was generally quite optimistic about continuing with the Saudi national team.
All right, so the only thing we've established for sure is that Roberto Mancini cannot count to 4.
Or really just he wanted to avoid the traffic.
yeah. That's it. Okay, and I also spoke to Hwang In-beom, the really, really impressive Korean midfielder, and let's have a little listen to what he had to say. Firstly, congratulations on your progression. What's the mood and the feeling like in the team?
As you can imagine, we were really happy and proud of ourselves. And the most important thing is I think we made Korean people to be happy and to be proud of us, I think. But we need to forget the result today. So we need to keep pushing ourselves because we're gonna play in 3 days, which is it's gonna be the most important game again.
Sure.
So yeah, I look forward to it.
What changed? I mean, the first half was very tight. There wasn't much space really for either team to play, and you guys shifted formations, a few tactical changes as well. Was that what changed things? Was it a belief? Was it a physical issue, a mental issue? What led to that comeback?
I think everything combined really well. In the first half, as you said, there was not a lot of spaces to attack. And they had more possession than we did. But before the game, we all talked to each other that it's really important to be patient during 90 or 120 minutes. Because in the tournament, in the knockout stage, everything can happen in 1 second, So we were really patient, even though we didn't have that much possession. But in the second half, we conceded really fast. But I think we reflected, our reaction was really good. And then during the second half, the things didn't go well. I mean, there was also not too much spaces to attack. So I think the coach changed some players and shape, like, for example, 4-4-2.
Yeah.
So we all knew we need to attack the half space, and we need to put the crosses and as many crosses as we can. And then because our number 9 Joe is he's special on the air, and he made it equalized. So I'm really
what was
proud.
Your emotion at that time?
I was almost I was about to cry, but I didn't.
Yeah.
But because it was really a special moment for me because Joe scored, and he was a little bit suffering in the group stage because here he's a striker. As a striker, you always want to score, but he didn't score. But I think that's why I'm really proud of him, because he's like my brother, and I hope really he's gonna score as many goals as he can in the knockout stage.
I know you don't get the attention, but I thought your physical performance was excellent tonight. You were up, down, still late on the game before you were substituted. How difficult is it to perform at this level for such a long time, such a short tournament?
It was really tough, physically, but that's what my strength is, I think. I always try to connect our team from defensive line and attack line, and even if I feel really tired and I couldn't run, I need to try, and I need to show, and I need to put my everything for myself first, and then for my family, for my teammates, and also importantly for the fans in Korea and also fans in the stadium. Next game I will run more than I did.
The next game, of course, is against Australia. I'm from Australia, so you have to be careful in your answer here. But what's your expectation for that game?
Yeah, it's gonna be a really good game, I think. I didn't watch full time. The full match of them, but I watched a little bit in the first half against Indonesia, and we all know Australia. They're strong physically, and they're aggressive in defensive line. But every team has a weakness point, I think. We also have, and they do. So I think we need to analyze calmly, and then I think doesn't matter if we play in 3 days and they play in 5 days. It doesn't matter in the knockout stage. Most important thing is to be ready mentally. So I think we are all ready after this game. I hope we have a great game against Australia.
Thank you very much. Good luck, but not too much good luck. A little bit of good luck.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, nice to hear there from Hwang In-beom. In the earlier match today, it was Uzbekistan. After my impressive, I don't know if you know this, I had a traditional Uzbek dinner last night, the plov, which was a great meal. So obviously inspired by the plov performance there. The Uzbeks went on and won that game to march on to the quarterfinals as well. They did take the lead, got pegged back, and then ended up getting a second. So 2-1 to Uzbekistan. They go on. Sudesh, for you, I know we've touched on it. It seems so hard, but is there any nation more than any other that you think now is in a good position? Even we heard what In-beom had to say there, about the timings of games. You'd think Australia has an advantage. I think it's 50 extra hours that they have to prepare, and that will be the case for other nations. Japan playing tomorrow, then they'll have a shorter turnaround. So these kind of things do come into play at this point of the tournament. But is there any nation that you think stands out as the favourite at this point?
At this point, I cannot put my bet on any side, but I would say definitely Iran have looked good. Australia are definitely the contenders now, with the timings as well as how they've grown in the tournament so far, like from the first game to like more convincing performances. But at the same time, Japan can always be a threat, and South Korea as well. With this win, they'll take it with both hands, and then they'll look to build on this. And Klinsmann briefly spoke about the physical aspect of it. They had 120 intense minutes today, and they'll play against Australia, who all the coaches that have spoken after the games have termed a very physical side to face.
Sure.
So with that aspect, I think Australia and of course, the draw as well, it will be on their favor too with the timings and stuff. And so far as well, they've quite frankly won their ties quite easily with not a lot of pressure. So Australia can't look past Australia, Japan, basically every team that exists. But Iran, Japan, or Australia would be my bet.
Yeah, I'm with you. I thought coming to the round of 16, I thought maybe only Thailand would maybe the team that for a couple of reasons couldn't win it. They, of course, went out today against the Uzbeks. But, I mean, even can a Jordan win it? Yeah, sure. Can a Tajikistan win it? Why not? I mean,
continue the Peter Sagat fairy tale.
Yeah, no, I think everyone's here for the Peter Sagat fairy tale because have you been in the press conference when he's...
Yes. So
you've had the handshaking...
Yeah, the first press conference that he held for this tournament where he did the handshake as well as the press conferences after the Qatar game, as well as the press conference the other night after they achieved that historic feat. And he has always been emphasizing on, running and fighting will only get you so far. So he has always been advocating about playing good football.
Sure.
And, even if their run ends here, he will always be like a cult hero of some sorts back home in Tajikistan.
Yeah.
He was comparing his victory, Tajikistan's victory, to Morocco's run in the World Cup, where he was saying people in Tajikistan won't sleep tonight, kind of. So I'm all up for Peter Sagat's, heroics.
And the Sagat statue in Dushanbe. It'll be an icon to visit for years to come. So tomorrow, round of 16 wraps up. Another couple of big nations are in play: Iran and Syria, and Japan and Bahrain. What do you make of those two games?
With Japan and Bahrain showed some promise in the first game against South Korea. They kept them in their toes for pretty much the first half, and in the subsequent matches they weren't as convincing, I would say. But Japan at the same time coming into this tournament with that form under Moriyasu, and then with after the loss against Iraq and how things turned out in the subsequent match, I think Japan should win this. It's their tie to lose. But at the same time, we have seen Bahrain in Asian competitions previously, as well as the qualifiers. They're always a tricky side to face, and they always are a hard side to score against. So first match, I would say upper hand Japan, but this has been a tournament of upsets, so not ruling Bahrain out. And for the second match, I think that's the one to look forward to. Syria have had a good campaign, I would say.
Really, I've been disappointed with Syria actually in this tournament. But,
I would say if you follow Syria, definitely you would have some more expectations from them. But in order to contain those sides, they've just scored one goal, but they have shown the promise that's been there. But at the same time, with Iran too, the first game they played well against Palestine, but the subsequent games maybe. It just shows that no side is a bit too good compared to the other. So that's also a tie that we should be looking forward to, but obvious favorites, it will be Iran. But never say never, kind of.
I think the real issue at this point of the tournament is now how to handle these short turnarounds as well, because we saw Thailand today rotate three or four really important. And that's exactly right. They got by, and then they bought the substitute Superchok on, who was the guy that got them back in that game. So how you manage this, I've got a feeling Japan might make a few changes that might surprise people tomorrow as well, with some kind of maybe key players rested. You expect perhaps Iran to do the same. So you've got to kind of gamble at this point of the tournament. Do you maybe play not some of the first stringers against the weaker team and then hope, or do you risk then getting dumped out? It's such a dilemma.
And let's not forget, Japan kind of had the same approach in Doha last winter at the World Cup. It was the subs those were the subs that were doing the things for them. So in this phase of their survival, at least, I think they will be just fine by doing that too. But at the same time, as you rightly said, they wouldn't want to risk everything by just throwing it all together, And Bahrain, with what they've shown so far, not as convincing. But the first game, they've shown they can scare their opponents. So Japan haven't been the most convincing of sides either, and their goalkeeper situation is always
a real issue.
Tricky. Yeah. So I think it should be a balance of whether you have to go rest your players if you are already banking on for the progression, or you just go all out against Bahrain. Just finally before we wrap up, just your thoughts on the tournament as a whole. There's always, particularly from outside Asia,
things are judged on the crowd numbers and this kind of stuff. So I think from that point of view, it's been brilliant. The organisation's been great. Obviously, the facilities are magnificent because they were in use, 12 months ago. So that's never an issue. But yeah, I think particularly the crowds. I mean, the crowd's been brilliant. Like, what was it again today? It was like 30 or 40 something, right?
42,000.
And yeah, so again, this is a early in the week kind of crowd. So yeah, for me, brilliant crowds, brilliant organisation. The question now is with some of the better supported countries, particularly Saudi going home, what will that do? I don't know if Tajikistan, Uzbekistan in the final is going to fill out. We understand that the final is going to be moved to Al Bayt. That's a story for another podcast maybe. But just generally your thoughts on the tournament.
I think this tournament feels, if I'm choosing the right word, a bit more organic, let's say, because the population here and in terms of the countries that are playing. And I was talking to some fans the other day, Iraqi fans, Thai fans, and even Indonesian fans. They were generally like their sentiment toward their own country rather than the footballing country that they used to adopt. Like we notice a lot of Argentina, Brazil fans in Southeast Asia and South Asia. Now that sentiment has turned into supporting their own country, and they've turned up. A lot of fans have traveled. So as a whole, it feels more organic, like people supporting their own country. And at the same time, for a lot of countries, things haven't been great back home. For example, I was talking to a lot of Iraqi supporters who had to go away from their country pretty young, and this was their chance of seeing their national team and meeting people from their own country. The other day, the historic victory against Japan, and then as well as the Palestine supporters, the whole thing coming in. So it feels like a very holistic kind of environment where people have come together to watch football, as well as the chants here have been amazing, and gather around that Souk Waqif. So in terms of that, I think it's a generally good sign for Asian Cup and Asian football itself. People are actually turning up to the stadiums. But with Saudi, Iraq now gone, the better supported sides in this tournament, I think it will. The Qatar games will still attract good audience. They are the home sides. Australia games, they have also attracted thanks to their profiles and some of them. But trust me, all the teams that have participated in this cup, they've all been able to attract fans to some capacity. It has not been like a dauntingly empty stadium anywhere. So if we just build onto this, the Asian Cup and the Asian football just builds onto this, there's a lot of prospect, and this has definitely shown that.
It's such a shame, because there's so much criticism that happens of these tournaments and certainly this country as well. We've seen historically, and you could just imagine the narrative, if there were kind of empty stadiums. So I think the organisers have actually done a really good job. The tickets were very, very competitively priced. When you come into stadiums, they've been handing out flags. You don't have to be from the nation. You can get a flag of country A or country B. So a lot of times I see the fans on TV. I'm not quite sure they're always from those countries, but that's a great thing as well, because it adds to the colour of it. And the fact that you price the tickets affordably means that people can come. People who couldn't otherwise be able to watch this kind of football. So I think a lot of credit is due. You're not going to get it because people only usually focus on the negativity. So I think it's important to point that out. Sudesh, it's been brilliant having you with us on the podcast. Thank you very much. Good luck. I hope you enjoy the rest of the tournament. Hopefully we'll have you back on before things finish as well.
For sure, it would be a pleasure as always.
Excellent. I don't know if that cheer was for you or not, but either way, that's fantastic. That is where we will leave things today from Education City Stadium. We'll be back tomorrow with a full wrap of the last couple of games in the round of 16.